Ted Barrett was so mad. I had 140 extra tickets.
Oh my God.
To the regional, and I had 2 seats on the floor. So it was great.
How great is that?
It was so cool.
David, I know you're very busy, so thank you for taking the time, especially this time of year.
Thank you. You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
I think it'll be very beneficial for anyone listening as we head into tax season, so this will be really good. I want to start. Being a practicing CPA for 4 decades, how has the IRS changed over the years?
Well, it was much more receptive and responsive to your needs. But we were using paper. There wasn't as much computer stuff. It was a whole different deal. All the estimated taxes, they threw them in a drawer. They never put them into the system. So there was a whole lot of trust behind the old IRS. And now with the computerization, it's much more difficult. And now with the staffing reductions and so many business entities, we've grown so big, it's very inefficient. It's a poor way to collect our taxes. We can't ever get a response from the service. If we get to talk to them, we get told we're the wrong person, so we have to call back. So it has made our business much more difficult because we don't know who's going to have a problem with their tax return. So we can't bill for the fact we may have to spend 2 hours on the phone waiting to talk to somebody at the IRS. So I will say that the changes to the IRS over the last 10 years for sure, and maybe 20 years, where they just tried to reduce the amount of people to make it inefficient. They've not added to the computers. They have terribly inefficient computers. We can't e-file for a month because they have to turn the computer off to reset up for this year. So the month of December, in early January, we could not e-file a tax return, even if we had an old return that had to be done. God. So it's really sad. But it's also, if you look at it, it's not just the IRS, it's everything. Look at customer service across the board. We take shortcuts, and the customer is the one who is losing out. And the IRS is no different. But for us who practice with them, it becomes a real burden because it's just difficult. And for our clients, we feel bad, and we can't solve the problem. So it's a frustrating part of our practice.
You know? If you don't call before 9 a.m., Central Time, like if we were to call after 9 a.m., you will get the answering machine that'll say, all the representatives are taken, call back a different time, then it hangs up. Can't even stay on hold. And then if you call before 9 and get on hold, it could be hours. And my question for you, David, is like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, would you call and they just answer? Or has it always been a pretty good hold there?
They did. And you could go to the Wichita office, was a full IRS office. You can go in and talk to somebody in Wichita. And it didn't have to, it wasn't just a drop-off system like it is now. There were people there that could help in customer service. We'd walk in the door in South Main, and then up at North Main, next to their office when it was at the between the city and the county building, or City Hall and the Garvey building.
Would you just go with the client?
Yeah, or have power of attorney.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was much easier to get things done. A totally different world than you're going to experience for the rest of yours.
Yeah, I envy that.
It's like, what happened?
It is just efficiency. How many dollars you want to spend collecting taxes? Which I will say, in my own political thing, I will talk about. I don't care which party. To have your collector of taxes be inefficient is stupid for the system. It's where we get all our revenue. Shouldn't we make it efficient? Shouldn't we be able to collect it smartly? Check people who don't do it right. Get a fast answer. If someone makes a mistake on a W-2 or a 941, it can be 2 years before the IRS sends something to you. And then you have to go back and figure out from 2 years ago the problem. So that's how inefficient it is. But it's because of 3-year statute of limitations. They don't care. They'll send it 2 years late, and you have to go deal with it.
Yeah, and if you owe, there's going to be interest and penalties on it, and you didn't even know about it till 2 years later, and you have now it's 20% higher because there's interest and penalties on it.
Unbelievable.
So it has made our world more difficult because I think we try to be customer service oriented. And so when you're trying to do it right, and then this IRS or the state of Kansas makes it inefficient for us, we look bad. We make enough mistakes in our own. We don't need help looking bad. So, yeah, but it is a problem we all have to deal with. so does everybody else in our industry. So it's not new to us. It's not unique to us. It's tough times.
Yep.
Man, LLC is a term that gets thrown around a lot, but I don't think people really understand what LLC actually means. Can you describe what opening an LLC does for you and how it changes your tax situation?
Well, first of all, LLC is nothing really to do with taxes. An LLC is a limited liability company. And it was really a way to limit your liability as the owner. As a limited liability company, the assets that are in that company are the only assets that could be taken from you if there's a bankruptcy or if you get sued, unless there's negligence or fraud. But it's really a business technical term and not an IRS or entity term. The IRS has entities, sole proprietorships, partnerships, subchapter S corps, C corporations. Are in trusts. They don't have LLC as a category. An LLC can either single owner, can be a sole proprietorship, or a S corp or C corp. A LLC with more than one partner can be a partnership or an S corp or a C corp. But it's not an entity that you say, I'm going to file an LLC form. There's no form for an LLC. It's just a designation which is a liability limiter for the owner. It's you doing business as Jack Dewey LLC. Yeah. So it's not an IRS term for all intents and purposes. It's a business term.
Gotcha.
Like you don't file an LLC tax return. There's no tax return specifically for an LLC. It's just limited liability protection. In case you get sued, they can only go after the assets within the LLC as long as there's no fraud or whatever.
Gotcha.
See how well we've trained him?
Yeah, you trained him well. Speaking of
Only took 10 years.
Speaking of fraud, I bet you guys saw in your industry somebody got charged with fraud in Augusta, I think.
Yeah, it was.
See, that's what I was thinking when you brought up how they're not going to be able, or they could go 2 years without checking. And I'm not 100% sure what she did, but if she was taking payroll tax or something like that, that is how I guess you would get away with it for that long, is they don't catch it for a number of years.
When then if they use their address for the 941s, even when they do send it, they don't respond.
Right.
So until it gets really troublesome. So there's a lot of things that can be done. And unfortunately, there's bad actors in every industry. So she's one of many. I mean, there's a lot of people in our industry that are poor preparers. It hurts us. But, we stand by it. And when we make mistakes, unfortunately, we end up paying a part of the penalty or all the penalty and some of the interest in times. But, we're human. We're going to make mistakes. And our clients understand it. And they work with us most of the time. But
when things like that happen in the industry, does everybody always catch wind of that? Do you hear it from their former clients? Do they come to you?
Well, sometimes we get them. Sometimes we don't. I mean, they're going to go somewhere. And so, because we've been around for a long time, we pick up a fair share of everybody when there's trouble. We fortunately have a decent reputation. So our clients do tell their friends, hey, we like these guys. So I've never advertised except buying the towels for Wichita State baseball every year for their golf tournament. Yeah. For their golf tournament. So it's not. We are very blessed to have grown our practice just by the nature of the business instead of about hustling for new customers. But it is, a problem for us when somebody does something bad because, it looks bad on our industry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I saw that and I sent that to Troy. I'm like, man, have you seen anything on this? Crazy.
But I mean, lawyers do it.
Yeah.
The businessman downtown who's got in trouble, whatever, for his very fancy big company, but he got in trouble. It's all over. I mean, bad actors in both private and personal and business happen all over. And it's not getting better, I don't think.
Right.
And part of it is because you can get by with it a little bit because it isn't.
Just look at what's dominating the national news.
Yeah.
A lot of bad actors.
Yeah.
True.
That are in powerful positions.
Yeah. Traditional versus Roth retirement accounts. What are the tax differences between the two types?
Traditional is a tax deductible IRA contribution. So you get a current tax benefit. But on the back end, when you pull it out, it's subject to being taxed.
As well as the earnings.
Both your contribution and the earnings are taxed. Correct. A Roth has no tax deductible part up front, but it's not taxable. I am different than most in my industry. I'm certainly different than a lot of brokers. I am not a big Roth advocate for everybody. I think for young people or people who have wealth or are going to inherit a lot of money, Roths are great because they're going to be in a high tax bracket. But most people working in their young ages are going to be in a tax bracket higher than they are in retirement. So why wouldn't you get the current tax benefit and pay tax at a lower amount at the back end? Or if you're old, to convert to a Roth and have paid the tax up front, it's like, why would I pay tax? I may not have enough time before I start taking it out or need it to recover all my tax I just paid. So I'm speeding up the tax payment process. So I'm not for everybody having Roths, but I will tell you, for young people and that are earning well and can afford to do it, they should do it. It's a wonderful thing because, in the compound interest theory, if the market, which has averaged 8% return or 10% return 8% return every 10 years. So every 8.5 years, you would get a double under that theory. So if you put in $8,000 and you're 20 years old, and by the time you get to 70, you get 7 turns. So your 8 would be 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512,000.
Damn.
If the market does what it's done historically. So that becomes a really big deal. And for young people, because they have the chance to grow it, it could grow to a really big number. So I would say Roths make a little more sense for them. It certainly makes sense. But by the same token, if you take $8,000, you put it in, and you're in the 40% tax bracket, you're only using, $4,800 of the money because $3,200 of it's being paid by the government. So you get more bang for your buck. You got $3,200 more dollars in your pocket right now, and you're not going to pay tax on it for 40 years anyway.
Because you're getting the deduction. You're getting
up front. You get a tax deduction for an IRA contribution that's traditional when you make the contribution. Whereas Roth, you do not. But again, when it comes out, it is going to be taxable. And whoever inherits it, it will be taxable to them if you pass before you take all the money. So it does not change its stripes. It was traditional IRA going in, it's a traditional IRA coming out unless you make a conversion. You don't get into the weeds about those. But everybody should consult their own investment advisor. Everybody has a different opinion. I have my, I'm not big. I don't think Roth is not one size fits all to me. It fits some, and again, it fits young people really well because of the ability to grow it over time.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. I feel like it's a common misconception that people think a big tax return is a good thing. What are your thoughts on that?
You mean tax refund?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of people who can't save. It's a wonderful savings method. They will over withhold, so they know I'm going to get multiple thousands of dollars in April, and it'll pay for all the bills I've accumulated over the year. By the same token, they're paying interest on credit cards that they can't pay because they're having too much withheld. But if you can save, you should try to get a small refund. But if you're incapable of saving, if you had the money in your pocket and you'd spend it frivolously, you shouldn't let the government have it, because the last thing you want to do is have to write a big check. It's a lot easier to have $100 a week that you don't get and live with that than to find $5,200 to pay at the end of the year. You know what I mean? So to have never seen that 100, I can live with it. But where am I going to find $5,200 if I didn't pay it in?
Right.
So the misnomer is it's good if you need it, but if you have savings ability, you should keep it yourself because you can earn interest on it while it waits. But trying to keep it close to where even make it pay $1,000, get $1,000 back is ideally the way you should try to get it done. But it's you don't know what your year is going to be. Guys on commission don't know how much their commission is going to be. People in the stock market have no idea how many capital gains they're going to have. So, and there are penalties if you don't pay in enough. So it's you got to pay something in to avoid penalties and interest and again that shock of having to write a big check.
I bet you guys have seen some 1099 horror stories.
You know,
Well, like what you were saying with the big W-2s that are commission based, they can't really withhold you correctly on a commission base. So you'll have these W-2s that are, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and when we do the tax returns, they could owe
they could owe
50
100
grand
they could
or
owe
100 grand, and they don't even know it.
And that's on a withholding situation where 1099s have no withholding on them.
Right.
So you can have horror stories for sure. You know, you say that I really have not had any bad experiences of 1099s. I mean, we made a typo on one. It was 1,000. We typed 1,000,000, but we caught it before the IRS did. So we corrected it. But the stupidest thing I did in my career on a 1099 was capital gains and losses. Every broker that I knew, it was always sales price, cost basis. Well, this broker's recap was cost basis, sales proceeds. And I was used to, I put every cost basis in as sales proceeds and every cost or sales proceeds in as cost basis. Well, they made $100,000. I had them losing $100,000. Well, by the time it gets caught, guess who paid the penalty and interest? Because it was completely my mistake. I just was so used to seeing it. Sales proceeds, cost. I just went right down the sheet and wrote them down just in order. And totally backwards. So
That's so can happen. April 10th, and someone mixes those up. It's like, man.
But I've been fortunate. We have not had a lot, but there's a lot of mistakes on 1099s, and getting the corrected ones can be a problem. And the IRS won't accept the corrected one until they get it in their hands. So that could take a period of time. So there are problems, but it's not one of my top 10 problems in doing tax returns is 1099 issues. You know, a lot of people don't get 1099s, which, gives them, they think, well, I didn't get a 1099, so I don't have to report it. That's not the case. You're responsible for reporting what is your income, regardless of whether you get a 1099.
Yeah. The bigger issue with 1099s, I think, is people that have gone from W-2, have never been 1099 to becoming 1099 and not knowing the full tax consequence of it.
And for a self-employed person, not only is there income tax, there's self-employment tax, which for the first 160,000 is 15.3% on your net earnings. So if you make net income of 160,000, you will be in the 20
or 100,000.
Well, 100, you'd be in the 25% tax bracket or 24% tax bracket, and you'd owe 15.3 on that 100,000. So now you're paying basically 35, 40%, and then for the state, it's over 40%. So it is a difference because in your job, you have 7.65 withheld,
Which is Social Security and Medicare.
and the employer pays 7.65. So you don't see it; it's done. But now, end of the year, you owe 15.3 on whatever that net income is. So you're correct, Troy. That is a major point for people, and that's real estate people, insurance people, self-employed
Trades,
yeah,
plumbers and electricians, and they're contractors.
So
When somebody unexpectedly owes a lot of money, how do you guys typically handle that with them? How do you break it to them?
well, you just got to man
Just
up and
cut
tell
right
them.
to
And fortunately, in most cases, we can explain why it happened. For these W-2 people that Troy talked about that are commission-based and their income goes way up on their commission, and they can only withhold at 24% when they should be withholding at a higher
40.
rate. Yeah.
Or 35.
So they get behind. So you explain this is why it happened, or you had a better year. You made $300,000 in the stock market. Sorry, you got to pay tax, and so they get it. And if you can't pay, the IRS does have a rather liberal ability to set up a payment plan, and as long as you make your payments, it works. But they continue to charge interest. But at least it's not like if you can't pay it, you're going to tax jail. So, and sometimes we're the bad guy. We have actually lost clients because their tax bill was too high. Tax liability was too high. But I hate to tell you, the next guy they went to, they probably had the same tax liability.
Right. We're not the ones that made your income. You made your income and didn't save.
So, but yeah, it's part of the trade.
job. Part of the job.
You get yelled at a few times. What the? And this is a family show, so I won't say what they say.
Oh,
By the way, can I say that the Dewbey deal? It's a whole different reference to people my age because we grew up with Miss Fran, or it was Ethel Jane King on Romper Room. And she had Dewbey. She looked in this magic mirror, and she looked for the Dewbeys and the don't be's. Do be a Dewbey, don't be a don't be. So
It's for your age crowd should know. It's named after the Dewbey Brothers, the band, 70s band.
Listen to the music.
That's right. You know that story. The Dewbey Brothers manager, who owns a winery now, B.R. Cohn, he hears them. He wants to be their manager. And he said they're the best band he'd ever heard of in California. They're just incredible. And they kept writing things when he was a manager, and it wasn't working. He said, guys, just listen to the damn radio. Play that. That's what people want to hear. That was their first hit. Listen to the music. Because he told me to go listen to the radio. Go listen to the music.
Wow.
And that became a hit. And then B.R. Cohn bought his winery in Napa Valley with his proceeds from being the manager of the Dewbey Brothers. And the Dewbey Brothers would go in concert into the 90s and 2000s, just have a private show out of his winery. And now his son Daniel's running the winery. So
Wow. What a great story, and what a great band.
yeah, they were great.
Yeah, we figured we love the band, plays off with our name, and we figured if we ended up getting a cease and desist from them, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
your podcast has been recognized.
Yes. We're in a great spot if we get that.
Yes. I want to jump to sports gambling.
Okay,
It's become huge over the last couple of years.
terrible.
Yeah. More than ever, people have to claim their winnings on their tax returns. What do people need to be aware of when it comes to deducting their gambling losses? And how hard will the government come after winnings?
First of all, winnings are almost all. I mean, big winnings are recorded. You get a 10-9 or W2G. If you win a slot machine over $600, they give you a W2G. If you bet at crap table or the blackjack table, you don't get them. But I'm sure if you had a big win at sports books, I think you're going to get 1099s as well, or a W2G. That is above the line income. It's on the front page of the tax return. To get a deduction for your gambling losses, which this year is the last year you can get 100% of the losses deductible, it is an itemized deduction. Well, a lot of people don't itemize their deductions at all, so standard deduction for a married couple is $31,000. They're going to blow $31,000. If they had a whole bunch of gambling wins, they got to take itemized deductions for their losses. They're blowing $31,000 free gift from the government to get this. So gambling winnings are offset by gambling losses at 100% right now if you itemize your deduction, if you have losses for the year, but no more than 100%. You cannot write off gambling losses. You can only write losses off to the extent of your winnings. So it's a problem. And one last thing, most states don't allow you to deduct the losses against the winnings. So in Kansas, you can't deduct it. So if you have a $100,000 win and you lost $100,000, but you had all these winning slot machine tickets, you're going to pay 5.7% on $100,000 to Kansas, and you made zero.
Right.
Whoa.
So it is.
What a sham.
Well, it's not what people want as normal income. It was not intended for gambling to be a way for people to make money. So they but it was one state for a long, long time that had gambling. And it was only one state that had, betting legally. All the betting was done through local bookies. They were all cash and backroom stuff. So nobody knew it. And now it's mainstream. I mean, it's insane. I mean, not only the teams may be owned by them now, by DraftKings, and every sports network's run by them. So it's a different world, but it is. And we have a lot of clients and good people, wonderful people who just love to go play slot machines, and they come with a stack of wins. But most of those wins come at a cost. Very few people net win if you play all the time. It's the case. And having been a gambler back in my youth, I played backgammon and gin in the back rooms, smoke-filled rooms, and then I take my winnings and go to Vegas and lose, but I was having a great time. I mean, as a punk kid getting treated like getting room, food, and beverage in a casino, like, wow, they picked you up at the airport.
Not bad.
Not bad for a kid who grew up in the west side of town like you're living now. So, yeah, it's pretty good.
Wow. We had a buddy just recently hit a parlay for $15,000 on the Super Bowl.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats to him.
Yeah. What was his parlay? You know?
Oh God, I can't remember.
It was 2 touchdown scores, the game under, and something else. But he put a big amount on it.
Well, that's great. Good, congrats.
Yeah.
But how about the story about the guy who bet 50,000 for Seattle to win the NFC at
Beginning of the
at
year.
28-1, so he won 1.4 million, and then he bet 50,000 more that they'd win the Super Bowl at 60-1,
No.
and so he won 3 million more. And he did. I question if he'd seen it, because the line was 4.5. He could have gotten, New England plus 4.5, where he might win both sides. If New England is won by, or Seattle won by
You could hit a
1,
middle
2,
in
3,
there.
or 4.
Yeah.
But I heard he took the money line and took New England to get to. He bet $1 million to win $2 million. So he lost $1 million of his $3 million winnings, but he was going to get $2 million either way. Is the way he looked at it.
Yeah.
If New England wins, I get $2 million. If Seattle wins, I get $2 million. But he won so he ended up winning $3.4 million for two $50,000 bets.
Wow. I always think about the taxes on stuff like that.
I wouldn't worry about him. Give me the $3 million. I can find a way to pay the taxes.
Yeah, for real.
Good for him.
How does 1.8 sound
Yeah,
after
sorry.
tax?
Yeah, no kidding.
But he had to be able to offset his losses. And I guarantee a guy who bets $50,000 on.
Oh, there's our buddy's parlay.
Oh yeah, there it is. Seahawks minus 4.5. Ramondre Stevenson and AJ Barner to score in the under 45.5.
How the heck was that?
What do you put on it, Blake?
Yeah, bonus
Oh,
bet.
$260.
$260 bonus bet.
Won 15.6 grand.
15 grand.
Well, and how Stevenson caught the ball like 1 inch off the
Yeah.
ground.
Right.
Oh,
he had the under 2, and so
and
when
the last
the
score
running
could have
back
beat him. Yeah,
right, called back on a hold.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep. The under was beat, but it got called back on a holding
Yeah.
penalty.
Guy's charmed.
Unbelievable.
man.
Yeah.
Tell him, maybe he should go to church and thank his maker.
Yeah.
No kidding.
God, that's funny.
Yep. I'm sure you get asked this a lot. The question, will this put me in a higher tax bracket?
Yeah.
Can you explain how tax bracket works for people like me who don't completely grasp it?
Yeah, we have a progressive tax system. So the lowest incomes pay tax at the lowest rate. So the rates currently are 10%, 12%, 22%, 24%, up to 37%. But it is, if you go from the 10% bracket to the 12% bracket, only the dollars over the 10% bracket are taxed at 12. And only the stuff over the 22 are taxed at 22. So your tax rate might be, I'm in the 24% tax bracket, but your effective tax rate is much less because you have some not taxed at all, some taxed at 10%, some taxed at 12%. So it is, the more you make, the higher your tax bracket. But only the money that you earn in that tax bracket is taxed at that tax bracket. So at the most, if you're in the 37% tax bracket, except for a couple of funny things you can throw into it, you will really not pay 37% tax. Well, there are a few funny things. There's a 3.8% investment tax, and if your W-2 is over 250, there's a 0.9% extra tax. So you could be paying over 40%, but it is not most people. And again, the difference is tax bracket is what your last dollar is taxed at, but your effective tax rate is what the cumulative would be. What's my
Your average tax rate.
Right, correct.
Which is going to be lower than your marginal. Your marginal tax rate's the highest tax rate you touch. Your average tax rate is going to be lower than that because you're working your way through 10. You're working your way through 12. You're working your way through 22. You're working your way through 24.
Yeah, and
so, it's your average rate's going to be lower than your marginal rate. Marginal meaning the top, the highest rate you're in.
Gotcha.
so, but it is very confusing.
Oh,
But
totally.
everybody thinks
From an
"God, I can't-
outsider, it
if I-
totally is.
if I can't make another dollar. Why? Because I go to a higher tax bracket. But you're only paying tax on the next dollar, so don't worry
Right.
about it. Make the dollar.
Your $1 is going to be taxed at 24%.
But
or whatever.
I remind people I got to stop making money. I said, no, you don't. Keep working. We don't take 100%. So do work. Make the extra dollar. Now there are cases where one spouse is making millions of dollars, and the other spouse loves their job, but we're making $60,000. Well, 15.3 goes to Social Security, and it's all taxed at 37 or 40%. It's like, why am I doing this? For this little bit of money, I can stay at home. It's only $20,000, $30,000 by the time it's over. I understand that, But yes, make the next dollar. Even if they take 42% or with state up to 50%, you still get 50 cents of the dollar you made. So keep working, keep making,
That makes sense. I feel like people get scared by that term when they shouldn't be after hearing that.
Yeah, I would tell you that it is total misunderstanding.
Yeah, I would agree.
Gotcha. Capital gains tax is another big term that people throw around a lot. What exactly is capital gains tax, and how does it affect someone's tax return?
Capital gains is a different form of income. We have working income, W-2 income, interest income, dividend income, business income, rental income. But capital gains relate to the sale of either stocks, bonds, or assets. So it is, and there's short-term capital gains and long-term capital gains. Short-term is anything held 1 year or less. Long-term is 1 year and 1 day and more. So there is a discount for long-term capital gains rates versus short-term. Short-term's taxed at ordinary income tax rates, but capital gains have special tax treatment. And it's a heck of a tax break. Now there's some accelerators for high income people that pay a little bit more than the 15% tax bracket, but it is a hell of a deal for these guys that make multiple millions of dollars in the stock market or get bought out, like Mark Cuban gets bought out sold his interest in the Mavericks. It's going to be taxed at an effective 20% rate or 23.8% is what it's going to be taxed at on his capital gain versus a guy making $200,000 gets taxed at 37% on his W-2 earnings.
Right.
So it's a hell of an advantage.
The highest tax bracket for long-term capital gains is 20%. Now, what David said,
and there's an investment tax at 3.8, so 23.8, and
but some people don't hit the. You cannot hit the 3 point whatever too, and just be taxed
correct.
at 20.
Right, or even So it is a really good advantage, and there's all sorts of things in the law that are. I mean, if you don't think that the tax code has been manipulated and to the benefit of certain people, there was back, I can't remember what it was. They raised taxes. It was in the Clinton years, but Bob Kerrey was the senator from Nebraska. He put a provision in that allowed the rates to go back. They went down, they went up, but for a lower period, they went up. Then for a period of 2 weeks or 2 months, they went back down, and then went back up. And in this 2 months, Warren Buffett had sold a business and made some huge number on the sale, and they basically carved out it's a Warren Buffett exemption. He got a tax break it was 28%. It went up to 28 from 20. They gave him an 8% tax savings on his $1 billion.
They dipped it back to 20
just for this period of time. There was also a tax code years and years and years ago that only excluded an oil company that was founded in wherever Phillips 66 was founded in Oklahoma, with Bartlesville or some town. It was written in the provision that only a company formed in 1888 and in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, is exempt from this tax. And it was at Phillips 66 didn't have to pay tax on something where everybody else in the world did.
Unbelievable.
Because Kerr was the senator from Oklahoma, and he ran the Ways and Means or something, and he just put it in for, and believe me, you don't think Kerr got paid a lot of money by Phillips 66? Yeah. So, but the tax code has lots of things, including carried interest, which is the investment guys back, these money guys make this, and that's taxed at 15% max, and it's criminal. It's truly criminal. Or Peter Thiel, I think, was a guy who created a business, and before he put any assets in it, he put it into his Roth. So he put $7,000 or $6,000 in this company in the Roth. It's now worth $2 billion. So he's avoided paying tax on $2 billion.
Whoa.
Because he knew he was going to make this thing big, but before it was big, he put it in. And that's legal.
But that was never the intention.
It was not the intention. And they need to relook at it. But that's not going to happen because it just isn't. But there are lots of things. You don't want to read the tax code. One, you wouldn't understand it. But two, if you did, you'd be bald like me. You'd pull your hair out. It's insane. It really is sad the way we choose to tax and what we do tax and what we don't tax. It really is disappointing for the years of doing it and seeing the inequities that hurt the average working guy. You know,
Wow.
Because long-term capital gains, who has long-term capital gains?
well, we
The
all,
rich.
yeah, and we all do if we have an IRA, right? But guess what? If it's in your IRA, there's no long-term capital gains. It's all ordinary income.
Right.
It's not. It doesn't get the benefit of long-term capital gains. Even that's what happens in your IRA.
Right.
So it is. Again, there's just so much inequity, and we don't have enough time, and I don't have enough energy to try to explain it. But it is. I don't want any to get frustrated. We still are the best country in the world, and we have wonderful deals. We do things better than most, but the tax code is not one of the things I put in my time capsule of how great life is.
Understood. You brought up Mark Cuban. I saw he recently gave, I don't know, like $10 million to Indiana's athletic department. Do guys that give substantial amounts of money to like NIL funds, do they get any tax benefit?
It is a charitable contribution in most cases, or can be an advertising deal. It depends how it's structured, but most of it is tax deductible as a charitable contribution.
You need to let Charles know.
Well, I think better yet, I
Chase,
think his
Chase
son.
maybe.
His son is much more interested in, or seems to be more charitable in that regard. I mean, Mr. Koch's given lots of money to causes, but they're not things. I wish he would have done things. When I was growing up, the Bradley Center was in Milwaukee. They were the richest people in Milwaukee. It was the richest people had everything named after him, and it's Koch Arena, but. I thought Charles should have given the whole $28 million, not not his lead gift, and then say, go raise $28 million more for scholarships for Wichita State. And you can name everything. You can name the Devlin Court. You can name the deal for Barry Downing, but make it for scholarship. I'll build this arena. So that would have been what I wish they would have done. But I can't spend Mr. and Mrs. Koch's money. But if they would have asked me, I would have told them that. But because it was what people did back then. The richest did completely fund it, not lead gift. But that is what Mr. Koch is comfortable with, or then funding, think tanks and things like that. It's okay. I mean, he certainly he's helped our community, which I'll say had a better arena because he was willing to take the lead gift. The Mark Arts is because they took the lead gift. So I'm not critical of the Kochs, but could they have done more? Yes. And I'm hopeful that the next generation will. And I mean, look at what Steve Thelmeyer, who was the CFO, Wichita State guy. He is major supporter of Wichita State, and he's doing this whole deal on low-price housing for the homeless. So, the Koch Industries tree is a big benefactor. Wichita is a big benefactor of their generosity. So I am not. Again, if I was Mr. Koch, I wouldn't have as much money as he does. One, I'm not as smart as he is, but two, I would have had a bigger heart, I think. I hope. But, can't be terribly critical and hopeful for the future. It'd be nice if we had an extra couple million in our NAL because we don't need Indiana money or Texas money or Texas Tech money because we're playing in a different arena. We have a pretty good NIL relative to the AAC. But if we had an extra few million, we'd get more talent. I mean, might have more problems, but we'd have more talent. I've watched teams mail it in because the season didn't go the way they wanted, and they have no loyalty. These kids, disappointing.
Right. Oh, so, you're looking at that in Manhattan right now.
Well,
yeah.
K-State's they've completely folded shop.
Yeah, and Miami.
They're dead.
Miami did a few years ago when they had Nigel Pack. They'd gone to the Final Four the year before, and then all of a sudden they weren't winning. And it's like. And that's why Larinaga, I'm sure, quit. It's like, what the hell? These guys are paying Nigel Pack $400,000 a year, and this was before the NIL was big, and he's walking down the court.
Yeah.
And walking back on defense. So, yeah, it's sort of interesting. I saw that Nigel Pack's playing for somebody else now.
Yeah, he plays for Oklahoma.
Yeah. How many years?
It's like his sixth year.
Unreal. Yeah, it's got to be.
I think I got some eligibility left.
Yeah.
Anybody need a 5'6" short guy, bald-headed guy
Yeah. No kidding.
who's 70? Yeah.
Too bad Van Fleet didn't leave like a year early. He'd have another year of eligibility.
Yeah. But what a great story Fred Van Fleet is in the world of sport. I mean, the highest paid undrafted person and the second highest undrafted person, Austin Reeves. I mean, they're both Wichita State Tides. It's insanity.
I know.
But Fred Van Fleet is one of the great stories of all time. And just remember, of all his moments, when he single-handedly brought us back against Missouri State in the undefeated year. We were down double digits, and he just took the whole team on his shoulder. I think he scored every time down, and it was amazing to keep that season.
Yeah,
So,
I know. We talked with, I think it was Mike or Zach, maybe both, about that exact game.
yeah.
And they both talked so highly about Fred Van Fleet.
Yeah.
He's such a great player. Greatest,
Wonderful.
I mean, one of the greatest Shockers ever, no doubt about it.
No question. And it's they got to get the raft. He's got to be in the rafters soon. He does not have to retire from basketball to get it. We got to get and I would think Ron for sure up in the rafters. I mean,
Who's your top 5, you think? Who's your personal top 5 WSU men's basketball player?
Dave Stallworth
Like in order.
in order.
Yeah.
Xavier McDaniel, just because led the nation in rebounding, scoring, and would have had the scoring record. He went to the bench with 8 minutes to go and had 43. You know, Antoine scored 45 one time. His arm fell off after the game. He shot so many times against Southern Illinois. I mean, we won by 100 to 69. He's still shooting. Okay, so McDaniel was just amazing, and I was so young. I didn't get to appreciate. I'm 9 years old when Stallworth left. So Dave may have been the best, and then he was wonderful. He won a national championship or an NBA title as a center for the Knicks. He was a center when Willis Reed got hurt. He and Phil Jackson were the two backup centers for the Knicks, and Dave was 6'7", playing against.
Wow. I always pictured him taller than that.
No, and but he was magic. He was magic, and I mean, the tragedy for that was we're number 1 in the nation for 2 days or 1 day. It came out on Tuesday night. We played Michigan at Michigan, and Cassie Russell with 3 seconds makes a shot from the corner to beat us by 1. Dave misses at the buzzer from the opposite corner. You know, we got it down to him. He got a shot off, but we lost by 1, so we were number 1 in the nation for exactly 1 day.
Wow. Who was the coach at that time? Do you know?
That was Ralph Miller,
Oh, wow.
who then went to Iowa, and then off to Oregon State. So
He's
he was
hanging in the rafters.
Yep.
yeah, he
Ralph
should.
Miller is.
Yeah, he should.
Yep.
Yeah.
But his best team, 64, with Stallworth and Nate Bowman and Ernie Moore and Dave Leach, lost at Wichita State in the Midwest Finals, regional finals, to K-State, and didn't go to the Final Four in 64 with a team that might have been able to beat Gail Goodrich and Walt Hazard. We go the next year. Dave Stallworth graduated at semester because they brought him up early, and Nate Bowman flunked out. So we went from Nate Bowman, an NBA player, Dave Stallworth, an NBA player, to we had 5 starters, all from within 90 miles of Wichita, 6'5" or under. Vernon Smith from Newton, Dave Leach from McPherson. I think Reed was from Wichita. John Chris from Southeast, Jamie Thompson. Oh, Jamie Thompson, Kelly Pete, both from East. So it was Leach, Vernon Smith, Jamie Thompson, Kelly Pete, and I think John Chris. All Wichita, or all Kansas.
Wow.
And go and get beat by UCLA in the first round. And they had a third place game. We played Princeton, and Bill Bradley set the NCAA scoring record. Scored 54 or 56 against us.
Unbelievable.
But I went out, they came back, and I went to the Roundhouse and got autographs of Larry Nosich and all these guys, Manny Zaffris. I mean, all these guys, Dave Leach. But I wish if I just kept that one, I would have loved to have that.
Yeah.
But I've been a fan that far back.
Wow. Where's Fred sit for you?
Oh, we didn't finish the deal. I got carried away. So it's
X-Man.
X,
Dave.
Dave Stallworth, Warren Armstrong, who was a freak.
I figured you'd say Antoine.
He probably may not make my list.
When did Armstrong play?
in the 68 area. He went to the ABA and played for he was an all-star in the ABA and got militant and stepped on a white guy's head in a fight just on the court and got banned from the league. But he jumped center at 6'2".
Wow.
Led the team in rebounds, assists, was amazing. Was just a super freak. Crazy good. So Warren Armstrong's up there for me. I don't know Cleo Littleton. It was before my time, but Cleo's would be on the list just for being first of his class. You know. And Antoine might be 5, you know, for me. But, you know, Cliff was better than he was the 2 years Cliff was here. Cliff was the leading rebounder scorer for the team. But Antoine's great. I'm not critical of that. I mean, it was a great team. Mm-hmm. It was fun to watch. I was there when they won in New Orleans.
Nice.
I am one of the few people in the world that have been to all 3 Wichita State basketball victories. I was there in 81. I was there in 87 when I was here at Wichita State when Henry Carr beat Danny Manning. And then I was in Omaha when we beat KU. All games against KU. And then I was there in 82 when Prince McJunkin beats the KU football team 13-10. So I've got all 4 of the last Shocker victories in sports over KU.
You're the Jayhawk curse.
Well, I said, except for a few KU guys, I don't know how many Shockers go back to 81. I guess Mike Kennedy would beat all of them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Because he started, that was his first year, was 80-81.
Wow. And this is his last year.
Yeah, and what a career.
What a career.
See, I know they're doing a tribute to him on the 21st, and I planted a seed with
against Temple.
With the AD and the assistant AD that hanging something in the rafters for him. So I don't know if they're going to, but I think they should put a mic.
I was actually thinking about that the other day. I was thinking, I wonder if they hang a picture of Mike Kennedy in the rafters.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of, I go back to Gus Grebe, who your grandparents would know. He was the sports guy for the Shockers before Kennedy, back in the 60s. When we would get ahead in the game and late in the game, he'd stand on his table and put the game in the old deep freeze because he said it was over. And only one time he put it in the deep freeze and we got beat. Somebody came back and beat us. But he'd stand on the table.
That's why they still say put it in the deep freeze, play the game.
Yeah.
They used to.
Yep.
Put it in the old deep freeze.
Yeah.
But back when I was a kid, the sports announcers were just good old guys. And I mean,
characters.
They were drinkers and partiers, and I knew them all. And, you know, they're why I'm who I am today.
That's so great.
So
I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I haven't felt anything yet. I've been a homeowner for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Is there any tax benefit to owning a home?
There is some. It's not as much as it used to be because the standard deduction has gotten so much bigger, and there was a limitation on what state taxes you could deduct. But now that they've changed the state tax deduction from $10,000 up to $40,000 for most people, you could get back in the itemizing your deductions. If you itemize, interest is deductible. Your real estate taxes are deductible. So that is advantageous for you. But it got limited because for a married couple, $30,000, your mortgage interest probably wasn't that much. Your tax were limited to $10,000. Unless you were overly charitable or had some serious health issues, you weren't going to make the threshold for most people. So it didn't have as much benefit. But now, if you're making a couple $100,000, you're paying $15,000, $20,000 in tax to Kansas. You got a $15,000 mortgage, $5,000 taxes, your charitable contribution, your church and charities. All of a sudden, you're over the threshold and you get a tax benefit. So you get a dollar. If you're in a 24% tax bracket, you get 24 cents back for everything in your itemized deduction. So yeah, it would help. So, but home ownership, and again, this is just economics 101. More people have wealth because of their home. This is their biggest asset. And it forces you to, with the mortgage, you have to make the payment, and you're systemically building wealth. Every month, you're building wealth. And thank goodness, housing continues to go up, so people's wealth is grown. So buying a house is a good thing, even if you don't get the tax benefit, if you can afford it.
But even from the taxability perspective of selling it,
and
it's very beneficial.
It's not taxable. It's right.
If you live in there 2 of the last 5 years as your personal residence, you as a single person would get a $250,000 gain exclusion. So you could, if you sold it for, you bought it for 100, sold it for 200, and you've lived in there for 10 years as a personal residence, none of that's taxable.
So it is a wonderful asset, and but that's the biggest tax advantage is that you can buy houses and sell a house and not be taxed.
$500,000 gain exclusion for married filing. If you file a joint, you're married.
Oh wow.
So rarely do we see people paying taxes on the sale of their home.
And most Kansans won't ever get the $500,000 growth in value,
Right? Sure.
Or Wichita's maybe
it's there if you need it.
Maybe Kansas City, but California obviously, and back east there's some you could have those kind of gains.
College Hill, maybe.
It'd be tough. It'd be tough. But anyhow, it's okay. Home ownership has more than just the value of a tax break, is what I would say to you.
Thank you for that. 'Cause
You're welcome.
I've had a lot of issues with the house. I've been discouraged. My God, what did I make a mistake?
The only good thing about not owning is when the air conditioner goes out, you call the landlord if you're renting. But you don't accumulate wealth, and since it is the number one asset for the majority of the country, it has some value, and I would recommend, again, as a friend, as an advisor, as a guy who I've lived life. I took a long time to grow up, so I wish I'd known then what I know now. I'd had more, and maybe that wouldn't have had as much fun. So I'm not sure what the trade-off is.
No, that's good to know because I have been discouraged.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm encouraging you.
that's good to know. Are there any tips and tricks for normal W-2 people to go throughout the year to try to get their taxes to be as close to zero as possible?
Man, I tell people that are W-2 earners, you are the salt of the earth. You are a taxpayer. You make money, you pay taxes, and there's not much out there for you.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, you are what made America great. You're the guy who works hard, pays your bills, and you write checks to taxes.
But what we talked about earlier, if your company has a 401k or a simple IRA,
right,
you can defer that into it. That's that's tax break.
That is certainly, and again, any way to get money out of your hands and out of sight where it grows without you knowing. So a 401k is great if you have that option at the office or whatever retirement. And if they match, it's even better because that's free money.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, but there is nothing out there. In the old days, they used to have employee business expenses. So for salesmen, they could write off all their travel, all their meals, all this stuff. And then they took it away. It's not even a deduction. It was an itemized deduction, but a traveling salesman had a big number.
Or a trucker.
Truckers that
have fuel,
W-2s don't get it
right. But back then they could do that.
Right. So it's again, they give a tax break to some guy who the last thing they need is a tax break.
Right.
But they greedily want them and have the connections to make it happen. And a guy who sells whiskey and goes to every bar, at night because they buy his whiskey versus the other broker can't deduct it because he's getting a W-2. But he's got to go out every night, buy a few drinks, and see and be seen, and zero.
So good luck.
Thanks. Oh man, you guys are both very sharp.
Thank you. I'm not sure that's an accurate description, but I'll let people think it. We'll fake them.
Everything I know comes from him, so I hope he's sharp.
Yeah. I do want to switch some Wichita history.
I'd love it. It's my home.
So you being a WSU grad, when did you graduate?
77.
So you probably went to the Flicker Lounge a few times?
Actually, not as much. It was not our bar. Our bar for my fraternity was 13th Street Electric Company. Then it went up in the College Inn. But we went to the Flicker. But it was not like, oh my God, that's the place I hung out.
The Flicker. So there's history with the Flicker.
There is.
For people who don't know, the Flicker was an infamous bar just off campus at Wichita State.
13th Street, right north of McDonald Golf Course.
Gotcha. Do you recall when a person was found in the storage closet dead?
Yeah. It was late 80s, I think, and I was,
It was a New Year's Eve, I think, in 1988.
Yeah. and I remember it, and it was big time story. But again, it wasn't like I knew every nook and cranny of the Flicker. If I'd been like some other fraternity guys that was their home bar, I'm sure it would have affected them more just because they knew that closet and they knew everything about it. But I didn't know the ins and outs of the Flicker. We went there. I'm not saying we didn't, because there was not a beer we wouldn't drink back in those days. But it was not the home bar for us, and so, or for my friends. So it wasn't as impactful to me. But I was now, let's say, 33 at that point in time. So yeah, you're going, shit, what's going on in this town? Mm-hmm. I mean, college kids. I mean, this was stuff that didn't happen. This was the out of body experience for us. So it was terrible, but it didn't have as much impact because, again, it was not my bar. If that makes any sense.
Did that shut down the Flicker?
It probably led to its demise. It was probably on a course to go under anyway. Life had changed. There were other places to go. They're all gone. I mean, Cedar was there, Flicker was there, 13th Street Electric Company were all right there in two shopping centers across from each other, same block in between, and they went away. Well, by the 2000s, I think the Cedar went away. So early 2000s. So it was probably going to die of natural death, but I'm sure that sped it up, just because
It's a bad deal.
Yeah. God, I always think about people that are retirement age, lifelong Wichitans, what they've seen. They've seen the Piatt Street plane crash in the 60s.
Piatt. Yeah.
Sorry.
It was 19th and Piatt. I have a great story about that. A couple great stories.
Sure.
It at 21st and Piatt was Jimmy Razzouk's grocery store. And by the way, at 21st and Grove was the Jabara Brothers grocery store. And they call themselves Jabaras, but that's okay. Jimmy Razzouk's grocery store. It was at 21st and Piatt. And George Jabara, who was the father to the 5 boys that wrestled at Heights in the 60s and 70s and started Jabara's Carpet, was out back smoking a cigarette. And the plane comes over and crashes 200 yards from him. And he went back in the story, said, I haven't been to church since I got married, but I got to go thank my maker. I cannot believe I'm alive. He watches it crash 200 yards from where he's standing.
Wow.
And it was on a Saturday. And the Shockers, which is the year they went to the Final Four, have a basketball game. And my sister and father went. And we lived west and drove on 21st Street. They took 21st Street and drove right by the deal. They drove over the fire hoses.
Wow.
That were across 21st Street to go to the Shocker basketball game. We played St. Louis.
Wow.
And beat them that day. But so I knew, because I was disappointed because my dad was taking my sister instead of me. I was 10, she was 12, and so she got to go to the game, and I didn't. But we knew about it, but we didn't exactly have breaking news coverage that went live.
Sure.
So, but yeah, that was a terrible tragedy. Killed 30 or so people. But again, a relative of mine who, one, owned the grocery store and two, was working at the grocery store, were totally affected by that deal.
Wow. And it was a plane leaving McConnell, right?
It was. I thought it was coming back to land at McConnell. It was a KC 135 something refueling tanker. But yeah, it was heading south.
God.
So it flew over 21st and landed at 19th Street. Just took out a bunch of houses and killed a lot of people. But it was big news. That was big news. Even for a 10-year-old, that was big news.
Man. So you had that. You have the shooter that was on top of the Holiday Inn.
Yeah, Michael Snipes, I think.
Which is now the Garvey Center.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, it used to be Holiday Inn.
Right. With 2 elevators, it was terrible. 26 stories to take for a lifetime. They used to have a really fancy bar at the top. You could be stuck on the first floor for like 20 minutes waiting for the elevator to come down, or vice versa, being up top and you sure didn't want to walk 26 floors. So, but it was a terrible shooting, and it turned out that was in 76, I think, something like that. And we all were affected by it. And Mike Hill became sheriff because he became famous for going in, knocking the door down, and capturing the shooter and stopping any more carnage. In 1984, I went to work for a company, Mid-Continent Municipal Investments, and one of my coworkers was shot because he was just going to lunch that day downtown, was shot in the arm.
Wow.
By the shooter. So he went and testified when he was looking for parole, and he went and testified, and showed his arm and the scar, and he never did get out. But so I was affected later than the experience too, because I met a guy who was shot by him.
Wow. God.
So I'm either star-crossed or something. I know somebody who's in every tragedy, weirdly. So
You just know somebody that's in every scenario, everything in this town.
Speaking, I'll give you another how ironic these things can be. My aunt was the first person murdered in Eastboro. She was killed in her home by she had a rental, and one of her tenants came and killed her to try to steal her money. The day we buried her, we're having a meal of mercy, and I was in the kitchen watching TV, and the weatherman said, Dave Schaefer said, the conditions are ripe for a massive tornadic event. Well, it turned out to be the Andover tornado, the day we buried my aunt. So I'm watching this news stuff with Susan Peters, and totally just oblivious, because we just buried my aunt. She'd just been murdered. It was like this. My mind wasn't in Andover, and then you see the tragedy. Well, the next day I get the house back from the sheriff, because it was in Eastboro. It wasn't the city cops, the sheriff did it. And my aunt and uncle just couldn't do it. They emotionally couldn't do it. So they asked me, because I was the oldest grandson or nephew here in town. And Mike Hill had just gotten out of a helicopter. They'd taken the tour of the entire path of that tornado. He said it was the most amazing. It was on the ground from Clearwater all the way through McConnell, all the way out to Andover. And there was damage in a straight line on the ground. This thing didn't waver at all. But so I was, again, every weird thing happened. I had some relationship to it. Who would think Andover tornado happens on a day that you bury a relative? But it was pretty impactful. And then you get to meet the sheriff, who just the day after it had been in a helicopter seeing the damage, surveying the damage. So, yeah, I've had my life has been totally blessed. I have been so lucky. I'm pretty happy for what I've accomplished. I sort of look back with great fondness of the impact I've had and the fun I've had. And I hope the fun I've added for people. I told people I'm going to have a good time. You can have one too. You just want to come along. But
And you also have a connection to the BTK story.
I do indeed. That's you had Susan Peters on talking mostly about BTK, and she said the godfather to one of her children was swabbed, because there was a music class that was taken over the weekend at Wichita State. You could go for 2 weekends in a row, Saturday, Sunday, 8 hours, 36 hours you went to, 32 hours you went to this class, and you got a full credit. And so they thought that BTK was in this class for some reason. So everybody that was in this age period, they swabbed. And so the KBI comes knocking on the door to swab me. It's like, are you kidding me? I said, there'd been one murder if it'd been me, because I would have passed out from the side of the blood. There's no way. But so yes, I was swabbed as BTK. And weirdly, the person who was maybe the 11th victim's husband saw BTK. And he happened to be at the Wichita Country Club when I'm relaying the story about having been swabbed. And for years, he called me BTK, or for months, he called me BTK. I said, hey, shut up. Nobody knows that I'm not. So just quit this. And he knew I wasn't, because he saw the guy. He had seen BTK because he was mowing the lawn when he was surveilling the house. Whoa. The 11th victim that nobody talks about, and I'm not either. But so he'd seen the guy, because it was pretty well confirmed that she was going to be his 11th victim.
Wow. That's crazy.
But how ironic. I'm swabbed telling a story to some buddies. He overhears it. And then we find out later years that he'd seen him.
Extraordinary. Wow.
Pretty crazy.
all the things you've seen if you're retirement age Widgeton, and then you've got the Forgotten Four and the Carr brothers on top of that.
That's
It's like
a tragedy.
you've seen
Tragedy.
so much tragedy.
Yeah, I really have. But I also became friends. Yeah, I'm lucky to have friends in the media. Had friends in police. Ken Landwehr was a friend who was head of the BTK, but he was also the comforter in chief to the one survivor of the Carr murders. And so he tell stories, and I mean how cool and gracious and cool this gal was. So you feel like you knew her better just because you had somebody personal. And Andy Schreiber, who was also a victim of the Carrs, I think Andy and she married.
Oh wow!
The surviving victim and Andy Schreiber, the Wichita State baseball player, I think, and I could be wrong, but something in the back of my mind says they got married because of the common tragedy.
Wow. That'd be crazy if that's true.
Yeah, it would.
So, and if I'm wrong, please forgive me. It's the only lie I told. I could be president. Oh, I'm sorry. I did make a political comment. Sorry.
Yeah, the amount of tragedies Wichita's seen is.
Well, I think it's any city,
Yeah.
but I mean, the Carrs was so heinous. So heinous. And I mean, talking about tragedy, only 2 colleges have had a football team crash, Marshall and Wichita.
Yep.
I mean, that was very much part of it was I was in high school, or junior high school, 9th grade, 10th grade, when that crash happened. So I was because I was going to Shocker games back then. A lot of my friends today were freshmen that got to play varsity. A couple of my friends and a CPA, Ed Plapa, was on the team, but on the other plane.
Wow.
So, it was, I mean, seriously, think about and there was they had a fundraiser after the plane crash here at Wichita State. And Monty Hall, I think, or Bob Hope was the MC. Monty Hall did Let's Make a Deal on TV back in those days. But he came, and they had all sorts of entertainers. It was on national TV, and it was a fundraiser for Wichita State and Marshall.
Wow.
And my parents went without me. I think May took my sister there too. I'd say I was just never
Stuck at home.
Yeah. Parents didn't love me.
I do want to finish the conversation with what's going on right now. The Shockers are playing their best basketball of the season and probably have their most important week of basketball, I would say, in the last 5 years.
Yeah, certainly since Isaac snuck that win out the COVID year was the last time we really were thought about.
Yes.
This is a big week, and I don't know what to think. I mean, I love this team's energy and skill set. They just seem to have a higher level of skill than we've had in a while. They look like a basketball team, but then they go out and lose to Rice, and if I had hair, I would have less or a loss like that. I told people the DePaul loss, I completely don't care because the coach damn near died. Coaching that game was the last thing I'd worry about. You can't 13 free throws. He couldn't even get mad. If his blood pressure went up, they were going to take him to the locker room. So he had to stay calm. So you don't get to coach at full efficiency when that happens. But that Rice loss, I think, may come back to haunt us. But if we could win these 2 games, it'd be great. And Troy told me he heard that all the GA tickets sold. That's so cool. If they put in 8,000-9,000 people, and the Aftershock proved one thing. If we win in this town, we will show up.
Yep.
No
we
doubt.
will show up. There's nobody going to Wichita State baseball games. There's a reason. We're not winning enough. Mm-hmm. When we won that place, we had the largest average attendance for college baseball in the country, in Wichita, Kansas, back in the Stevenson years. Filled it's behind me. I don't know if it's on camera. We filled the arena every night.
Yep.
That's one thing I'm envious of your generation and the generations before me was the great WSU baseball teams. Because how fun would that be to go to X Stadium just on a random day during the early summer to go watch, or late spring to go watch WSU, and it's packed.
And
that would be so awesome.
All-Americans and possible Hall of Famer with Joe Carter. I don't know if he can get there, but pretty impressive. Some great pitching.
Oh yeah.
It was a wonderful time. And some just great kids. PJ Forbes and Pat Mears and Kevin Hooper. I mean, little guys, not the big guys, the Blake brothers, Connor Gillespie, in the pros. Alex Bohm.
Yep.
Doing great now. Tommy Hodaby's coaching it in Chicago. Hooper, I guess, is now at Atlanta. So, it's a lot of fun. It was a great time. I mean, I got 3. At my 10 years old, I'm watching the Final 14 in 65, and I was going to the game, seeing Dave Stallworth. Went through the Smithson years with Carr, Livingston, Ozell Jones, Tony Martin, and Randy Smithson. I was at the Iowa game where they called a timeout they didn't have. I then went to New Orleans.
Was that the loudest game you've ever been to?
Yeah.
That's what our Meissner grandparents used to say. That was the loudest
And
game.
My seats were on the floor. There's one for you. I got the AD was so mad. Ted Brayoff was so mad at me because when KU and Wichita State both got this regional, everybody's looking for tickets. Well, I called Southern University's AD and offered him cash for all his tickets. Well, Brayoff was going to buy him. I gave him cash, so I bought all his tickets. I bought Mississippi's extra tickets. I'm selling tickets. I was selling municipal bonds back then. I had every banker in the state calling me. Hey, the guy in Russell, Kansas, W.R. Schaefer, was a KU guy. So I had to give him some tickets. I get a phone call from a lawyer in town. Mr. Haynes would like to talk to you. He was the president of Bank 4. He'd like some tickets to the game. So I got to go meet him at the Wichita Club, which is downtown. Ted Brayoff was so mad. I had 140 extra tickets.
Oh,
to the regional, and I had 2 seats on the floor, so it was great.
How great is that?
It was so cool. So I had that period of time. Then I got, I was at the game when only 3,000 people were there. Scott Thompson's last game. There were more athletic directors in the place than there were fans by the time the game was over. And then got lucky with the Marshall years. You had Pete. The history of your show, PJ Cousinard. I partied with him in Washington after we lost to George Mason. So I was at the Sweet 16 game there. Your Uncle Pete. I was responsible for his last high school football loss. They lost to my football team, North High, and then went on to win the state championship. Didn't lose another game after
You
they lost
did
to us. Kirk Seminoff. Been friends forever. Bob Lutz's neighbor, known forever. Mike Kennedy, like I said, I was at his first game he ever did. Susan Peters, I'm the godfather to her child. We've been friends for 40 years. So yeah, I have a big I was responsible. Ryan Beatty.
Oh yeah.
I was his dad. I was bowling with Frank, where he worked at the bowling alley back when those boys were 10 years old. He and Matt Beatty.
Lynn Rogers.
And Lynn Rogers was a neighbor, good friend, known him forever. And the St. Brains on. I told you the story about their grandfather. My father was his 3rd customer in his trash hauling business. So I've known that family since it's back in the Stallworth years. So yeah, I think I'm responsible for all your shows. Everybody I know. So
that's amazing.
But it's been Wichita's a great place because, one, you can go any place. It's a wonderful vacation. I mean, if you lived in New York City, where are you going to go get better entertainment? If you lived in Chicago, where are you going to get better pizza? But Wichita, Kansas City's just 2 hours away. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, they're all great, fun towns. Denver's out there. We can go anywhere. And you can get from the east side of town to the west side of town in 30 minutes almost every day. Mm-hmm. And we have Midwest ethic. We are good people, and you don't get goodness every place you go. And I love that about this community, and it's why it was my home for 70 years. And I, even though I moved away, I still consider this home. And so, but thank you for this opportunity. I had fun, and this town's done some fun things. But can we go last one thing about the city they do some stupid things. 12 years ago, they had a sales tax, and they weren't content. And I yelled at the people who were doing it. I said, it was to do the water treatment plant, but they also put in for infrastructure and this. And I said, guys, don't. Everybody will buy the theory. Every 75 years or 50 years, we have to do something. They'd have a sales tax for that. They'll vote yes for it, like we did for the Intrust Bank Arena. What was the Coliseum was built in 80 or 70 something 70s, so it's 35 years when they built. They paid for the sales tax. They'll do it. We would have had a sales tax for the water treatment plant, which would have never had to come out of general funds if they would have just done it for that. But though they did the shotgun approach, went for everything. Well, now it gives everybody a reason to get mad. If you go sell, in your lifetime, you're never going to get another sales tax for a water treatment plant because you'll be dead before we build the next one in 75 years. It would have been done by now and not been $5 million over budget or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But they don't make good choices. And what are they doing? The same exact thing.
Do you think that's the problem with this? Because I almost lean towards they have proven to be horrible fiduciaries of our money in terms of the ice rink, in terms of the water treatment plant. Like, you are who you are, and you show that you cannot handle our money.
I think that your point is well taken, but let's go. If we did it right the first time, if we would have done it just for this, right, we would have had a water treatment plant. Wouldn't be in the budget. We might not even need to raise this penny sales tax because we would have had that paid for off budget, and we'd have had all the money we use for this treatment plant available to do the things that they need to do. So I do agree. But again, if you decide legitimately that Century 2 has to go and we have to update, right? Because if we don't, we're going to lose all these conventions and they are still a life's blood. Then you focus on that and you do the general day-to-day stuff through your general budget.
Why don't you think they just tear Century 2 down and rebuild it?
Because
it doesn't look good.
I don't know, but you got to convince people that if you do tear it down, it has value to this community. It has to we have to be able to get a convention. We have to be able to say, we get things from this. It can't just be, but it would be nice. We deserve, because we love the arts here. It's crazy. Our music theater's freaky good relative to our size. Our symphony is freaky good relative to our size. They deserve to be treated to a beautiful facility with great acoustics, and we as patrons should be in nice soft chairs. So I can get my nap in when I don't like to be at the music theater.
Wichita Water Partners potentially being off the hook for late fees due to that change order is not sitting well as we look at a sales tax.
And nor should it. But this is government. Again, it goes back to what I said about the IRS and customer service. These guys are city council and county council and state legislatures and governor and Congress and Senate and president. Mm-hmm. They are no longer responsible or accountable to us, the people. Bring us truth. Do it right. When you mess up, say so. I mean, I'm telling you, the last time I think somebody apologized as the president, it was John Kennedy. He said he screwed up at the Bay of Pigs. I mean, and guess what? The people forgave him. We are a forgiving people, but you got to be willing to say I screwed up.
Mm-hmm. I also didn't appreciate the city council touting like getting $219,000 back from the ice center, the maintenance fees they gave out. They were touting that as a win. I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, well, go back to Old Town and the parking they didn't collect. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a million horror stories of mismanagement, and but it happens. Government is not efficient. Left to its own device, government's not efficient. Business left to its own device is greedy. They need each other. We need government to rein in the greed of business. And I'm not I want business to be successful, but there's a difference. And we need business to make government efficient. They should have a symbiotic relationship, but instead they're lining each other's pockets and not working for the good of you and I. And it's a disappointment. It's not, and again, looking at the politics, it doesn't matter what city you're in. I guarantee you, right? Cities run by Republicans are getting the same bad treatment as the cities being run by Democrats. It just is human nature today, and it's disappointing. It really is. One last stupid vote that was done wrong, and now that Phil Ruffin's got his casino at the dog track, there was a vote there were two votes. One was to build the casino in Sedgwick County, and two was for Phil Ruffin to get slot machines at the dog track. Well, Phil just ran a simultaneous campaign with the pro city of Wichita casino versus Sumner County, which got it That's why it's in Mulvane. 1 inch south of Sedgwick County. It's in Sumner. But Phil Ruffin closes the dog track the day after. He lost by 500 votes. The casino lost by thousands of votes. If Phil Ruffin would have said, I'm closing my deal and separating himself from the other vote, he would have had his slot machines back in 2000 or 1990 something. And because he didn't, he had to wait 30 years or 20-some years.
Wow.
And by the way, small stupid story about my relationships. Phil Ruffin bought his third grocery store from my father in 1963 or 64. I could have been a billionaire if my father had the ingenuity that Phil Ruffin has. But so my life has been star-crossed with everything. But again, and Phil's smarter than hell, and he didn't need more money, but he could have had that. He just didn't know that politics of, and just say, hey, I'm going to have to close it if you guys don't let me have this. And I guarantee it would have passed. I mean, 500 votes is all it was. You don't think people said, that's Jobs. I mean,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to learn how to market. Your uncle was a master at it. He won by 9 votes his first election.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah. And now it's a 16-year career, you know,
Right.
and he's
Yeah.
going for 4 more. I mean, but if he loses that 9 votes,
Right.
he might never have heard
gets off
from
the
Pete
ground.
Meitzner.
Right.
Yeah, he might be on the beach somewhere.
There you go. He'd have more money and maybe more hair.
He'd probably still be at Dino's.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is that, you make decisions and they sometimes come back to haunt you. And you're right. Bad decisions made in the past will hurt them on this sales tax deal. And I wish we could come up with why we have to have it, But alternatively, they should go back and raise the mill levy instead of beating people up by raising their property values to the insane amount we've raised property values in this community. We don't raise. Well, yes, you do raise my taxes. You got my property value up 40% over the last 3 years. The tax on the water or fees on water has gone exponential. Just add to the mill levy. Don't make my house value insanely higher than it historically has been. And just be honest with people. We're going to have to raise the mill because this is what our budget is. Sorry, people. I mean, I don't like taxes any more than anybody else does, but we need to be able to fund the government that we need. Whatever level it is, we need to do that. Sorry to get into politics.
No.
But all that being said, I wouldn't trade the 70 years I had in Wichita, Kansas with anything. I couldn't think about it, that I could have been in a better place, met better friends. Had more respect for just the humanity of our community. I mean, we are very charitable.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
And so, again, thank you. You guys, your show's been fun for me to watch because it's fun. I hope I didn't disappoint. But,
No.
You have a great perspective on things and a great story. And I do just want to hammer home back to Shocker basketball, how big of a week this is. So in the American, Shockers are 1 game back behind the 2 teams they play this week, South Florida, Tulsa. And how the American unfolds in the conference tournament, the top 2 seeds get buys into the semifinals.
we just
Like
looked
4
at it.
rounds.
We talked about
They
that
get
because
buys
I didn't quite understand how it
into
worked.
the semifinals.
Yeah.
So if Wichita State goes 2-0 this week, they will be sitting in first place in the conference.
Except Temple. Temple's only got 3 losses, so we could
Yeah.
be behind them. But we get Temple the next game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is so much fun. And if they feel it like I think they will and get that energy, I watched Monday night. If you think KU beat Arizona by the players only, you're wrong. That place
Right.
did something. Arizona went from playing great to getting skittish. They didn't shoot with confidence. They didn't run their plays with confidence. And yes, KU's players elevated, but that crowd helped them. And that crowd won us a lot of basketball games at Wichita State.
Yep. If you've got tickets, go to the game Saturday. If you can't go, find somebody who can.
Yeah.
We got to fill that up because
Yeah.
how great is it for Mike Kennedy's last year to have a big-time Wichita State-Tulsa game?
When-
that means
Full
something at the
circle
end of the
for
year.
Kennedy.
When Mike
Yeah.
announced his retirement, I sent him a text, and I said, you started with the Sweet Six, an Elite Eight. Could we have one this year? Because we looked like we're playing a little better. And he said, from your mouth to God's ears. So, I mean, wouldn't that be cool for Mike Kennedy to even get to the show one more time,
Right.
let alone go making a run?
Right.
And the only way we get there is we got to win the league
Yep.
and the postseason tournament.
And finishing in the top 2 of the regular season would go a long way
You
to
should
doing
win
that.
2 games.
Even 3 or 4. Because they get a bye
Yeah.
till the third round.
Yep.
So they're in the quarterfinals automatically. You only have to win 3 games.
Yep.
And so that's a lot better than having to win
But
5.
the opportunity's there to get into the semis.
It certainly is. We control our own destiny, which
Yeah.
has been a long time since we did.
Yep.
A long time since we did. So I'm excited. Paul Mills can't be more likable. He doesn't, but we haven't had a guy who, could sell it like since Greg. I mean, Isaac Brown, nice guy too, but he didn't have the personality. Paul's great. Doesn't have a big personality, so wins is the only way. Marshall and Smithson, were out there enough that, they got people in the seats even before we were good. Turgeon got people in the seats because of his local nature, and we started winning the second year. Mark is a quiet guy too, but, personalities work around here.
Yeah.
And so,
But it's just about winning.
it is about
Yep.
winning. It's about winning, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Yep. So get to the games if you can Saturday. I will be there, and I hope there's a big crowd. David, thank you so much for the
I
time.
would have been there
This
tonight,
has
but
been
you guys
fantastic.
made me do this. I was at the game in Tampa when we beat South Florida, so I have,
Let's run it back.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, this is one of the few I've missed. I've been to almost all of them. So
Well, it's fun, and there's nothing like having the school's success make this a community even successful. We ride on that.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Think of the positive impact it has on bars and restaurants when Wichita State's good.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it's good enough, you can't get in this game. So you got to go watch it at a bar.
Or if they're on the
because they're
road,
sold out.
they have meaningful road games.
Yeah. Well,
You
then
know.
you got to get ESPN Plus. I mean,
Well, yeah.
we got to get a little better TV package, but that's another story for
Yeah.
another day. Thank you too, and I hope I was a good Dewbey. With
Oh,
the
yeah.
with the Dewbeys.
Yeah.
You sure were.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This was great.
Pleasure.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, guys.